Hello everyone. Today I'm going to tell you a story that if you didn't believe me, you wouldn't think it was true. However, this is not a fairy tale, this is not a fantasy, this is the reality of what happened today in Australia. Today in Australia we had a federal election, an election between a Prime Minister who had been there for 11 and a half years, who had presided over possibly the greatest prosperity that Australia's ever had, against an opposition leader who had been leader of an opposition for just under a year, 50 weeks, who had never held a ministry, who had been in Parliament for 5 years, and who had never really had a real job. He's been a diplomat, he's been part of the public service, he's been a professional do-nothing, basically, all of his life. So here on one hand we have a Prime Minister who's given us 33-year record low unemployment. He's given us relatively low interest rates. He's given us an economy that's running at 5.8%, probably one of the highest in the OECD. So you would think the choice would be clear. But today our nation became a weaker nation. The Prime Minister of this country lost. Not only did he lose the federal election, he actually lost his seat where he's been the sitting member for the last 35 years to, and listen to this, a TV presenter. So the question I pose today, has my country become a stronger nation because of the passing of our Prime Minister, or a weaker nation? I think the weaker, or the latter, is how you would portray this. Let me just explain a few things that's actually happened in the last year. People in Australia have become mental. They've become crazy. They've become complacent. They think that this economy and the good times will run forever. A lot of them have never seen a recession. A lot of them have actually never seen bad times. I've seen good times and bad times, and I doubt whether we'll ever see what we saw over the last 11 years ever again. We had a ruse from this character called Rudd. If you ever have a look at one of his antics, just go to YouTube, go on the site and type in Rudd, R-U-D-D, and earwax, and you'll see Mr. Kevin Rudd, our now Prime Minister, in Parliament, pick his ear and eat earwax. Okay, you don't crucify a man for that, but I've never done it, and I don't know anyone else that's done it. However, it's been done. So he laughs it off, and everyone laughs it off as well. But we now have a man who eats his own earwax as the Prime Minister. God help the country. His platform was based on scrapping IR laws, which were supposedly, and by the look of it, they have been brought out to bear, unfair to workers. However, they've been responsible for putting about 450,000 new jobs into the Australian economy. God only knows what's going to happen now that those unfair laws get scrapped, and we're winding the clock back 10 years to go back to an arbitration type situation where the workplace agreements get scrapped and it's collective bargaining. In other words, all the mining unions get together, they march on arbitration and say, we want 25%, blah, 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 and if we don't get it, we'll go on strike. And the airlines go on strike, and the beer guys go on strike. This may or may not happen, and I'm hoping that it doesn't. But again, I think my nation has become weaker today. If it does happen, and if we do see economic times slip, this will be the turning point. This will be the day, the time, the minute, the hour that people say, I remember when Australia started to decline, when unemployment started to go up. We're now at 33-year lows, when interest rates started to tick up. And of course, if they do, they'll be blamed on the Howard government for at least 2 or 3 more years. These people have no idea about how to run an economy, let alone their own selves. Here, for example, is what Kevin Rudd, and this is one of the greatest responses, and no one ever picked it up, that he's ever said. What was the Leader of the Opposition's answer last week when it came to how he'll keep a lid on inflation? You've got to love this. Now remember, this man has now been elected the Prime Minister of this country. What Australia needs on the whole challenge of the future and the whole challenge of dealing with inflation in the future is new leadership with fresh ideas to deal with these future challenges. God help us. There was once an ex-Prime Minister that actually stood on the steps of Parliament and actually said, God save the Queen, because nothing will save the Governor-General. Well, I sit here before you now saying, God save the Queen, because nothing, I don't think, will ever be able to save this country.